So I first came into contact with the Dharma in January, February 2016, consciously. That's where I found the Kadampa Buddhist Centre in Leicester. Yeah? And it was there that I was introduced to meditation and reflection, and I only went twice and had a deep impact on me. And I went away after that developing my own practice of meditation and ethics. Going back further, going back as far as I can remember actually, thinking about the precepts and the ethics, I've always felt these ethics have been deep within me, just waiting to be, brought to life in a sense. From the age of about 7 or 8, that was when I found out what meat was, and I instantly felt that I had to stop. Where that feeling came from such a young age, I don't know, because it was never something that my parents imposed on me. I just happened to ask, what is this? What's it coming from? And they told me just straight, it's an animal. And I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe that I was eating an animal. I was quite distraught actually. So I became pescatarian under the agreement with my mum, because my nutrition intake was rubbish. It wasn't great until the age of 16, where I stopped eating fish as well. I was a vegetarian that didn't like vegetables. So it was a difficult one. At age 18 I discovered drinking, and so that had a deep impact on my life for the next 4 years. I was indulging in drinking on a regular basis. During this period I would have said that I was at my most rebellious, aggressive, ignorant and vulnerable. Vulnerable in the sense that I was quite uncaring about my health and my future. And it was on the 8th of May 2015, I remember, I decided to stop drinking completely, and I never missed it. It didn't feel like a sacrifice. I think if it felt like a sacrifice, it probably would have been hard, but it didn't. It felt much like a liberation. On Thursday, the 3rd of November 2011, I remember that very well, I moved out with my parents for the first time. I was 18 again, nearly 19, and so this was a big step of my life. Unfortunately, it was because of a disagreement with me and my dad. We didn't see eye to eye on things, and I was in a rebellious part of my life then. This is when I moved in with an elderly fellow named Dave, whom I had known since I was very young, I would say 10 or 11. And I moved in with him, which is next door to this very building. Right there, right next door to this building, that's where Dave lived. He was 94 at the time, nearly 95, and we both share the same birthday. The only difference is his was 76 years before. And we shared vegetarianism and ethics. And in many ways I consider Dave my first genuine spiritual teacher. But he was as such without my even knowing it. So we had a mystical and interesting relationship. Because he exemplifies loving kindness on a daily basis. Yeah. Without an ounce of craving, greed, hatred or ignorance. I've never known of such behaviours from him ever. He only ever smiled, he only ever shared kind words and thoughts and actions, and whatever he had, he would give it to you if you asked. He lived for the benefit of all beings, genuinely. He was and is a true Christian Science bodhisattva, in my eyes. He passed away on May the 19th, 2017. He was 100 years old and 5 months. And we celebrated our birthday together. Next door, Sangha night was on here, I remember, and we were celebrating our birthday jointly. and our nearest and dearest friends turned up. So when he turned 100, I turned 24. And it was a really, and it is, I always refer to it in the present tense, because he still is very much here, as much as any of us are. Do you believe that? Just in a different way slightly. And it was a truly fascinating relationship we had, and I am much all the better for it, absolutely. And so I believe the way to honour that relationship is to remember this loving kindness that he exemplified on a daily basis, because it's a rebirth in itself when someone exemplifies such loving kindness and then you carry that torch after they've left. That itself I consider a rebirth. So in September 2016, about 8 months after I had discovered meditation and the Dharma, and it was also 8 months after I moved into my own place out of Dave's, across the city. About 8 months later, I was at the Phoenix one evening with my film group, but I discovered this very poster of the Buddha, and it stuck out to me very, very clearly. And I turned it over and it said, "Oh, meetings every Thursday at the Quaker's house," which was the building that I just happened to live next door to for 4 years, not even knowing. And it is this is the actual poster. I remember it. I picked it up and I kept it with me, and it's been on my wall ever since, because this was the way to actually start formulating and cultivating a conscious practice. So the next day I came here, and Vidyasara was leading. I remember that night very, very well. I remember who was here. It was Mark, it was David, it was Jenny and Ed, and Vidyasara and me, and we all had a very special, intimate space together, and it was very special, and never stopped coming after that. So adventure has really had a significant part to play in my Dharma life, and it really gives my travels and my hobbies spark, gives it colour, gives it meaning. And somehow or other, I've always felt drawn to Scandinavia. And since travelling to Iceland twice and Norway, I have made discoveries and connections to my spiritual life that I cannot explain on a rational level, and I'm able to do that. It's just felt in here, it's just felt in the heart. We talk about the heart connection, and that is what I feel. It's fueled by emotional energy and action. And this is why I believe I have such a strong connection with the green Buddha of fearlessness, America City. The Buddha of the North, from the land of shadows and mystery. So this drive to go into the unknown excites me, and it drives me to open those doors and find the answers. Dharma doors, Vajra Gupta called them in Sailing the Worldly Winds. Draws me to open those doors. So the first time I went to Iceland in July, August, I went on a hike in the wilderness on my own. Without before travelling abroad alone, this was a very daunting task, but it was exhilarating at the same time. I followed my wrist's compass going off track, and I ended up on top of a glacier named Eyjafjallajökull, and the wind was tremendous. I could see for miles and could see the volcano which erupted in 2010, closing airports down, and the hiker's trail which I was supposed to be following. The track I was now on was the one that was formed after that eruption, but I lost it and ended up crossing over to mountains, slipping down slopes, getting stuck between mountains, following a river trail to a cliff edge, and climbing up that mountain side to then climbing down the other side, where I eventually met the river crosser. Now, despite the name crosser, it is not supposed to be crossed. But I could see no other way past or around, so I negotiated the many trails of rivers, getting slowly closer to the other side. So if you can imagine that I am this candle, and that other candle is the other side, with the river in between. I say river, it was rivers really, it was plural, there was many currents drifting all chaotically in different directions. And it was the seventh river that I had got to, and there was no tiptoeing around. And by this point I was really truly ready to call it a day. So I marched through this river, not knowing at first how deep it was. It came up nearly to my hips. And the sheer power of this river carried me off of my feet. I went down the stream for a few meters after that. And I quickly struggled to get back to my feet and on the ground, and I scrambled to land. When I got to the hostel, I discovered that my hostel is another mile inland. So I walked dripping wet into the wilderness and checked in and travelled back to Reykjavik the next morning. When I got to this hostel that I thought was the one that was mine, there were all these hikers sort of, arms around the back of the head, having a nice cold beer and, having a relaxing old time, and there's just this young person emerging out of this river, soaking wet head to toe, completely exhausted. It must have been quite a sight for them. It was quite a sight for me. So I got this big bus back to Reykjavik the next morning. I had not completed what was initially intended to be a 3-day hike. That was only the first day. So once back in the city, I vowed to come back next year and complete it. And I did. So 2016, July, August, I came back. This time I stayed on the track, sensibly, and I completed all 3 days. The sights were incredible. They were diverse, they were beautiful. There was all sorts of rock colours and formations, mountains, glacial sites, waterfalls, geothermal hotspots and more. At the end of the hike I was truly moved to tears. It was very powerful. This accomplishment had proven to me that it is our mind, and only our mind, that is our only obstacle of attainment. And at the end of last year I explored Norway and Svalbard. Svalbard is Norwegian territory, but it's an island in the North Arctic. And exploring these majestic and mystical lands in the dark months, I now know has strengthened my relationship with the Free Jewel Sangha practice, and also with Amoga City, when I experienced the Northern Lights. And also, very, very strangely and mystically so, I ended up spending New Year's Eve with the Oslo Triratna Buddhist community, which I didn't know existed until that day. I was thinking, what will I do on New Year's Eve 2017? And I just looked up, Triratna, and they were there, and I went to spend New Year's in with them, and they were wonderful, just like we are here, very welcoming and warm. And instead of going down to the fireworks display, we just sat in meditation. I couldn't have wished to have spent it with anyone else, because there was an instant connection. Sangha was there. It was with me and it was with them, and it was established as soon as I walked through the door. The connection was made, and for me, that strengthens this, this jewel of Sangha. It really does. So I've slowly, gradually deepened my practice within this Sangha in this context, and the 3 jewels, and I feel now more than ever that they are the centre of my life. I live for the bodhicitta, the truth of the Dharma, and the fellowship of the Sangha. and my practice is as flourishing as it has ever been, thanks to these 3 jewels. So I've managed to cut out drinking and any intoxicants, and I've transitioned to veganism now. And so my health is better, allowing me to be better for those around me. So it's a multi-beneficial thing. And I have even took upon myself a vow of celibacy over a year ago, which has allowed me to rediscover my body and how I can connect with other people. I am no longer attracted to people through craving. I enjoy them, or all beings, for who they are. I call this bi-compassion. This vow has also allowed me to discover how I truly feel about my gender, because I truly feel androgynous, and I feel that I am neither one or the other. I feel I am both, I really do. And we have so many boundaries in society, so many labels, names, and I think we are capable of moving past that. I do believe this. So I feel confident in being able to adopt the best of both and all gender characteristics for the benefit of all beings. That's the means. And it's through regular meditation practice and regular study and regular daily reflection and daily practice and retreats and Sangha events that enable me to work my way forwards to being the best possible version of oneself. And so as a result, I thank all of you for holding me so tenderly in this Sangha. And what I haven't mentioned is that I did ask for ordination just before Christmas.
Thank you very much, Tom. Send you a vision.